Hello, everybody. This is Gary Gomes. You can reach me at 508-525-0001 or through Crystal Expectations at 508-990-7898 or at neivas@comcast.net. Hello, everyone. I'm here to talk to you about Vedic astrology, how it affects the world, how it affects your life, and the general condition of the planets and what the planets might have in store for you and the world. I've been an astrologer for roughly 31 years now, 32 years, depending on how you count my starting point. I've been interested in astrology since I was, oh my gosh, maybe around 9 or 10 years old, but only got as far as the London Goodman Sunshine book and a couple of other books I picked up through the years, but studied studied a little bit of astrology in my 20s, but not a lot. Studied numerology in my 20s, and some tarot in my late teens, early 20s. But I found Indian astrology quite striking. I learned Indian astrology in 1990, about a year after I had a reading. And I determined I wanted to learn that particular form of astrology because it was so dead on point in terms of my life. I was quite startled. And the nice thing about Indian astrology is there's an entire science of remedies connected with it. So there are certain things you can do, mantras, gems, which I'll discuss in more length as we go on, that actually can help you out in terms of your life, in terms of planning things out. You can also use astrology just as a planning tool or as a coaching tool to identify strengths and weaknesses that you may possess. And that's fine. And there's also a use of astrology, mostly used in Western astrology, to look at the psychology of the chart and figure out what self-repeating behaviors are causing you problems. But also what self-repeating behaviors are actually giving you advantages and helping you out. So for certain people, they're extraordinarily hardworking. For certain people, they're very curious. For certain people, and certain people will get into, let's say, like financial trouble over and over again, or money will miraculously appear to them when they need it, or they'll get into bad relationships one after the other. And these are essentially common problems that people encounter. Astrology can be used as both a predictive agent, so letting you know what's going to happen. It can be used as a preventive agent, so essentially planning to avoid. And it can be used as a remedial agent. So let's say we have a certain planet in your chart which may be too weak or too strong, that may be causing you certain problems. And you can compensate for that internally through meditation or through therapy. You can compensate for that externally through the wearing of gemstones or exercise or things like that, and also through mantras. Mantras, and there are also an entire set of remedies and rituals that Indian priests can perform for you, or some are simple enough that you can perform for yourself if you get the appropriate training. So a lot of these things are what led me to astrology. I do have an academic degree. I have as a matter of fact, 3 academic degrees. I have a doctoral degree in education, a master's in business administration, and a bachelor's in sociology. I'm also, this also led to me to study Indian spirituality. I ended up in astrology through transcendental meditation. I was initiated into that system. I was initiated into Hinduism, and I was also initiated into the Kriya Yoga lineage of priests or swamis. So, and I'm a Reiki master, and I've done a variety of other things through the years. So this isn't to pump me up and let you know how great I am. All these things take time and focus and opportunity as well. So, so for some of these things, I was just in the right place at the right time, believe me. So I take no personal credit for some of these things. Some of these things I do. Some of these things actually were very difficult for me to do and were very costly. Not from a financial standpoint, but from a personal standpoint and a professional standpoint. So I think when you do these things, there's almost always some element of sacrifice in it, but you regret not doing things more than you regret doing things. Okay, so I'm just trying to give you that little bit of encouragement. I've served as the president, I'm the president emeritus and the vice president emeritus, vice president before president of the Council of Vedic Astrology. I also teach at Kepler College. I also teach at Dyra Academy, and I also teach at the American College of Vedic Astrology. I've been teaching there since 2003 or so. And I actually helped to a small degree in the design of the online program there when it was being developed. So that doesn't mean I'm terrific or the greatest thing since sliced bread. It just means I have a little bit of background. There's still a lot of things I'm learning as I'm going along, and that's one thing that's fascinating about astrology. You never actually get to know everything. You never actually get to know every system in every detail, in every nuance, and that's true not only of Indian astrology, which has far more subsystems than most people in the West would realize, but also it's also true in Western astrology, or the various traditions of astrology which originated from the Middle East, from places like Chaldea and Mesopotamia and Turkey and Greece itself, and even and we even have our own systems in the Americas, especially the Mayan system is pretty interesting. And there are also divinational systems used by other cultures, which seem to be largely lost now. So again, a lot of these systems seem to be pretty universal. A lot of them seem to be pretty old, much older. So archaeology tends to be kind of a conservative discipline, and especially historical archaeology. And most people will look at documented charts as evidence that something's happened. So basically, we have a lot of cultures like India, which really didn't write things down until maybe around 3,000 years ago. And it was transmitted. And you can even find references to astrology in the Hindu holy books. You can find references to astrology if you care to look in Western holy books. Okay, so it's not just unique to India. There are actually passages in the Bible, which you could construe as astrological passages. There is no Hebraic tradition of astrology. There's there Interestingly enough, in places like Göbekli Tepe, which is an old site, an old 12,000-year-old site, they discovered in Turkey, which seems to have astrological symbols on it. So nobody's verified this, of course, and nobody's been able to actually look at these sites in any great detail. But it's fascinating that there's this large temple complex that they found, and large temple complex and gathering place they found, but it seemed to be a temple. It seemed to be a place where people gathered to pray, but also do rituals. And there were symbols that looked like astrological symbols on it. And the Indians claim sites going back to, oh gosh, some claim 30,000 BC. I don't know how true that is. There are sites in South America which also claim to have that. A lot of antiquity to them, So there's a lot of things we don't know. But essentially, most people are really cautious about claiming really old systems of belief, or really old archaeological bases being valid, and with good reason. There could be a variety of other reasons these things had these symbols put on them, which we really don't know. So that having been said, I'm going to talk a little bit about Jupiter in Pisces this week. I'm going to talk about some lunar transits, and I'm also going to talk about some upcoming phenomena. I'll probably talk a little bit about the French elections too, which always fascinates me to look at elections from different parts of the world. So let me go over here. Let's see if I can pull this up. Now this is the chart for today, and I got to fix the place. And this is for Turkey. I don't want to do that. Get that rebooted. So I make sure that you're not just seeing me on the screen. You're actually seeing a chart. So let's stop the share. Let's go back and start the share again. I'll do this a couple of times just because I think this particular program has, Zoom has some problems with layouts, and it's not Zoom. I like Zoom, and I appreciate it. By the way, if you do like what I'm doing, and I hope you do let me know. Please join the group. I'm up to close to 400 subscribers, but I need a lot more. I need around three times that amount to monetize the site, and I like to monetize, if only to give you better production, better assets. We are working on a book right now, by the way, but like, subscribe, and let me know what you like to see on the site. I did send out a video that I did with Locality Astrology to everybody, just so you can see some of the other videos I do, or some of the other instructional videos I could do. I do teach astrology myself, as well as working for other institutions, and I am planning on founding my own school relatively soon. This has been something I've been promising for about 5 years, and it's something which is just sort of taken the backseat to other priorities. This year, I'm going to make it a super priority, and I have fewer and fewer reasons not to do it. So essentially, that is coming relatively soon, and reasonably soon. And the book, as I said before, has been in development for 20 years. No word of a lie, 20 years. And also, I am planning on taking in people who can teach, people who can tutor, people who can, and I'm open to new students all the time. And I do a lot of one-on-one teaching, which I think is actually better for some students. Group classes are better for other students. You have, so a lot of us grew up in these forms where you essentially didn't interact that well with the teacher, and a lot of us like that shield between our teacher and ourselves. Um, and but I do appreciate when I can teach, because I always learn something new from the student, and I always can bring something new into their lives. So if you're interested in learning Vedic astrology, please contact me, 508-525-0001. Now, let's look at the chart. Enough of the commercials. Let's look at the chart. And as I said last week, we're at the start of a change cycle. By the way, I want to give a shout out to Parashurama, whose birthday occurs around this time. Parashurama is the incarnation of Vishnu through Venus, and actually, even though it's Venus, he's a rather aggressive incarnation of Venus. He wears a loincloth, dresses, not a loincloth, which dresses a lot like Shiva. He's a devotee of Shiva. He's a priest, and he's a priest for a tribe of, basically savages. But the story about Parashurama is actually kind of interesting, because he's asked to sacrifice again and again, and often violently. And if you think about the nature of, and when I say sacrifice, his father asked his family to kill his mother because his mother had impure thoughts, and the only one who agreed to do it was Parashurama. And Parashurama's father said, "Okay, fine. Now, do you want? I can give you a boon. What's your boon? Well, bring my mother back to life." So there is no sacrifice. So essentially, it's a major sacrifice. Somebody has willingly and basically the idea was to save the mother from impurity. That was the idea. I'm not going to put a contemporary spin on it. It's just the story is what it is. The other part of the story is Parashurama's father had a wish-fulfilling cow, and a bunch of rulers, what are called the Kshatriya caste. Parashurama's a Brahmin, he's a priest, asked for this wish-fulfilling cow that Jamagdani had, who was Parashurama's father, and they came, and Jamagdani wouldn't give up the cow, and so they killed him and killed Parashurama's entire family. Parashurama went around the world, got revenge on them, essentially killed the entire warrior caste. So there's an element of purification there. So if something's corrupt or if something's out of line or malicious or impure, Parashurama comes in to cut it out of your life, to purify it. Now, this isn't really how Venus acts in the chart, but there is always an element of sacrifice connected with the significations of Venus. So you can get something, but you have to give up something in return. Okay, so let's use it let's look at it at the most fundamental level. If you end up getting married or getting a husband, getting a wife or getting a husband, you can't maintain all your girlfriends or all your boyfriends, right? So or you can't retain all your relationship partners. You put your heart and your soul to that one individual. So that's the purification process. It's so so it's it and Venus rules Taurus, which is a sign of accumulation, and Libra, which is a sign of the scales. That is the value of something that you own. So in order to get something of value, you have to give up something of similar value. So I think that that's kind of an important thing. We're giving up the winter right now to come into spring. This is the time of the year in which Venus is normally exalted. It'll be exalted in about another 20 days. And also, Jupiter and Venus will be in Pisces, exactly conjunct right around May 1st, in exact conjunction. They're in, you can see the chart now. I'm going to turn this off for a second. Like I said, I just don't trust this. Okay, so Jupiter and Venus are in this sign. Jupiter is really close to Pisces. As a matter of fact, he's going to move into Pisces on April 13th. And Venus will move into Pisces around the 20th, since Venus moves, I'm sorry, around 20 days from now, my apologies. And since Venus moves more quickly than Pisces, than Jupiter does, it'll catch up to where Jupiter is in the Vedic chart. And this will give a great moment for sacrifice, for learning new knowledge, for doing the right thing. Jupiter in Pisces is interesting because I think over the next couple of years, this will be kind of fascinating for us to watch. And I just want to talk about this just for a few seconds. Then I'll talk about the world map. Basically, Jupiter enters Pisces. It does give this feeling of extraordinary possibility. It gives this feeling of return to spiritual life and return to traditional values and return to. So Jupiter is not. Jupiter in Sagittarius tends to be liberal, but it's really at heart. It's a conservative. It's a family values kind of a planet. And it offers abundance to what I would call traditional needs or traditional efforts. And in Pisces, that will encourage more people to take up spirituality again. And that Venus will sort of jumpstart it. It'll make it very, very strong and open up a lot of possibilities for people. It won't do anything to tame inflation because Saturn's aspecting that combination, and I think you'll continue to see the inflationary pressure until the end of the year, at least until January of 2023. But that combination will make a lot of people really interested in spiritual life. The reason I'm saying it's really fascinating is because we have similar combinations in the 1990s with Saturn and Jupiter in essentially almost equivalent signs. And this was around 1994. Jupiter was in Libra, and around 1998, Jupiter was close to Pisces. And I think 1998, 1999, And this was it, and this was fascinating to me because this was, and Saturn was also in Pisces, so it wasn't exactly the same situation right now. But there'll be of a lot of political and religious scandals over the next couple of years. So first of all, it'll start off very, very optimistic, very, very good. Um, and but with Rahu and Aries, you're going to see a lot of upheavals in governments, a lot of changes in governments, not necessarily revolutions, but a lot of changes in governments. And also with Jupiter within about a year going into the same sign that Rahu is, you'll start to see scandals about religious teachers and spiritual teachers um, and teaching in general, and a lot of disheartened or disgruntled followers. Now, this, depending on who's in power at the time, it'll attack whoever's in power at the time. But I think this is fascinating because we have a similar set of circumstances to what happened for the Clinton impeachment trial over the next couple of years. So I'm not saying that Joe Biden or whoever is president over the next couple of years is going to be impeached, but there will be shifts in government over the next couple of years, and and some of them will be rather shocking. I know that Boris Johnson in England's in a lot of trouble. The government of Pakistan is in a lot of trouble. And as a matter of fact, I mentioned that in previous broadcasts. And also France is facing kind of a nail biter election in that. So its primaries are April 10th, which is a few days away. And it looks like it'll be Le Pen versus Macron again, like it was 5 years ago. Le Pen has a good chance of beating Macron. I'm going to look at the finals when they come closer, but I think in the primaries, and one of the reasons I'm saying that is not because Le Pen's a wonderful candidate or Macron's a bad guy. It's just that when economic pressure tends to pile up, the party in charge tends to get hit worse. If the opposition can essentially extend solutions, they'll be more favored. Now, it's a bit more complicated in France than it is in a lot of countries because, number one, Le Pen's support tends to come from outside of Paris. And Paris is a city in which elections get decided. Obviously, it's a large city. And also, Le Pen has the party with which she's affiliated has a mixed, not so good a reputation in France, and also there was some praise for Putin, which will probably haunt her in the upcoming election. But I think also there's a lot of pressure for change this year. And I think you'll see that in the United States. I think you'll see that in a lot of countries all over the world. Not everyone, but a lot of countries all over the world. So a lot of incumbencies are in trouble because, in part because what happened with COVID, in part because of what's happening with Russia right now. And now people can be self-sacrificing if they see it as being for a higher cause. But there's a question as to how long people want to be self-sacrificing. And that's so that Jupiter in Pisces will extend to another year and make people say, well, we really think what's happening in Russia right now is horrible, so we're willing to pay the economic price. But I'm thinking that probably won't be the case, and you'll see changes in a lot of countries' governments over the next few years. I'm not saying this is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just looking at the astrological chart, and particularly Rahu in Aries. Okay, so this will be an interesting year to watch politically. So let's look at the chart. So we start with the chart with the moon in Pisces. So there's a lot of emphasis on money in this chart. Okay, the second house, the house of money. The house of the first house Lord is Mercury, and he's finally out of debilitation. The planet moved out of debilitation a few days ago. So that's a relief for me because everything seemed to be very confused. And it's probably a relief for people, for a lot of political leaders around the world who are just being misunderstood. Or maybe they were being understood properly for the first time, but there was a lot of confusion about what they were saying. But Mercury's also with Rahu, so we're going to get more sensationalistic press. Okay, so prepare yourself for a bombardment. And like I said, I don't. Unquestionably, the Russians are wrong. Okay, so I mean, don't pin that on me. I'm just having been through the Vietnam War buildup, which happened in an earlier Saturn cycle, and having lived through propaganda buildups from the other side in the 30s and the 1990s. Excuse me. I'm worried that that what we're seeing right now is a propaganda buildup. Now, again, definitely, this is the Russians are doing horrible things. I'm not questioning that. I just, when we get coverage, extraordinary coverage from one side and no coverage from the other side, that concerns me. And I, and again, it may be my temperament, but like I said, I've lived through a couple of these events before. I can think back very well during the last Rahu cycle when the last Rahu and Ketu cycle. When there was a lot of fear being built up around Iraq, and so 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 these were different Rahu Ketu placements, essentially, but also Jupiter was strong when we went into Iran, when we went into Iraq. So we have a strong Jupiter coming up. We have a Mercury Rahu conjunction in Aries, which is really a sign of taking action and a sign connected with a war, to be honest. And we have Mars over here along with Jupiter right now. That makes me think we're gearing up for some kind of military involvement. And I think it'll dissipate when Mars is alone in Aquarius. I think it'll continue to dissipate, because we've already had the explosive conjunction of April 6th and nothing really happened. Nothing all that earth-shaking really happened. There were a few earthquakes, but nothing really of severe magnitude or that affected a great many people. And I think one of the things that I am looking for, though, is we do have this short COVID scare because Mars and Jupiter are together. So we'll probably have another COVID scare around August because of Mars and Jupiter being together in Pisces, but that'll be mitigated pretty quickly. Okay. The other thing is, but with this chart actually looks at, so it's good. This is good for diplomacy. Jupiter's in the 7th house. He goes to the 9th house along with Venus. So we should have relative peace, although there will be some people who insist um, on trying to get military involvement. K2's in the 5th house. There's some problems with relationships just on a general level this month. Rahu and Mercury are in the 11th house. There'll be a lot of scandals connected with media over the next few months. There are a few right now that aren't really well broadcast because the media doesn't broadcast its mistakes. And I think we're going to see a lot of, over the next year and a half, a lot of changes connected with governments and with societies overall. This is not going to be a stable period. Okay. Jupiter's entering a mutable sign. Within about a year, it'll enter the same sign with Rahu. And like I said, you're going to see a ton of scandals erupt around that time. No. All right. So let's look at the locational chart. So again, it's good to get spiritual. It's good to get more in tune with the world and more enlightened about what's going on. That's a great thing. Just don't let it lead to what I would call a certain amount of fanaticism. Essentially, not necessarily joining cults, but essentially trying to wipe out the enemy. Okay, because to be honest with you, if you don't have a healthy dialogue, you don't have it's not a good thing. If you don't have an opposing point of view, it's not healthy for anybody. So there needs to be some kind of a contrast or some kind of a balance between people, and there needs to be some kind of a dialogue happening between individuals with differing perspectives. So I think that's one of the things I'd encourage you to do is if you find something you disagree with, don't just call them crazy or just don't walk away from them or just don't say you're brainwashed by so and so or call them names. Just try to figure out where they're coming from. Try to understand and try to engage in a dialogue because that's how we all learn. It's not, nobody has all the answers. So we have Jupiter passing over Hawaii right now. Again, that causes inflation. It's not really a good thing. And it actually increases some disease outbreaks. But again, this is relatively a benevolent combination. It doesn't indicate that Hawaii is going to be in bad shape. As a matter of fact, it'll probably be in good shape this year, these next few weeks. But again, inflation definitely, and like I said, increased disease rates definitely. Sun and Mercury are in conjunction over this, and we have Moon coming down over here. So this is really not interacting with anything except in Alaska. So you'll probably see more government interference in Alaska. The moon is off the coast of Canada, so expect to see a little bit of flooding there, but increased communications. And Rahu, you're going to see scandal or governmental problems on the west coast of the United States. especially in California, especially near Sacramento, which is the state seat. Interestingly enough, there was a small story about the Michigan conspiracy, and 4 people were the conspiracy to kidnap the governor, and 2 people were acquitted, and 2 people were the case was thrown out of court. So I'm not so I just find it interesting that some of these things pop up right now, uh, while our attention is focused elsewhere, because that was a big issue for them. So the Sun-Mars conjunction is over here in North Dakota. There's a Venus line running through, pretty much through from Michigan all the way down to Louisiana and all the way down to Central America. And this Rahu line is not really affecting anything in the United States, so that's good. But we have this Saturn-Mars line in the middle of the country that would tend to give a little bit more violence, a little bit more frustration, especially in Texas. The Venus line will actually be good for justice or for the correction of wrongdoing. So that's showing up over Michigan and throughout, pretty much throughout that belt of the United States, all the way to, and it'll probably affect Georgia. And there's a Jupiter line running through Massachusetts, but all this part of the country is between Jupiter and Venus, so it should be fairly good for everything but inflation. Okay. And the other thing is, so career life should be good. But again, like I said, inflation is still kind of a problem. Jupiter's moving through Venezuela, Peru, and Chile. So again, we'll see some more disease outbreaks, some increased COVID cases probably over here. And that's mainly because of Jupiter and Mars. And also some more COVID cases over here, over in North Dakota, South Dakota. There's a Jupiter line running through Haiti and the Dominican Republic, and that should increase disease cases over there. Sun and Mercury are going over Brazil, so the government will be exerting a lot of authority or a lot of control. And I need to check the time. And again, there'll be scandals connected with political figures over the next month or so. Okay. So as a matter of fact, the governmental scandals won't just be next year sometime. They're going to start pretty intensely around the end of this month. There's a Jupiter line running through. So right now there's a Mars line running through England, or close to England and through Portugal. So there's some violence in Portugal, some violence in Morocco, it looks like, and throughout Western Africa. And there's a Jupiter line running through Norway, Denmark, Germany, Italy, and into Algeria. So at least this particular line, and it looks like it's going through the Central African Republic and places like that. So again, this will give increased outbreaks of disease in these countries. But also, like I said, shifts in popular sentiment. The other thing we have to look at over here is there are no lines affecting Turkey or Eastern Europe right now, which is good for them. There is a moon and a sun and a Mercury line. So we're going to be continuing to be hearing shocking news out of Saudi Arabia. out of Iran and of course out of Ukraine. But the tenor of the news will change. You'll get different perspectives, and I'll shift over a little bit. So Pakistan seems to have calmed down. There's a Saturn-Mars line running through India, so we can expect a little bit of, along with, what's that line right there? A Rahu line. So a little bit of panic near Calcutta and close to Bengal. And a Venus line running through China. So China's looks like it's going to be a little bit less besieged by illness, although this Jupiter line is still running through China and Vietnam. So I still expect to see disease pockets in these parts of the country. And Sun line is moving through Japan. So is the Mercury line. So again, there'll be government scandals in Japan before the month is out. The moon line is running through Australia, so there's going to be a lot of communications and scandals in Australia. And last but not least, we have a Saturn-Mars line running close to Micronesia and essentially New Zealand. There's a Rahu line coming close to New Zealand. New Zealand has been in a bit of a panic because of COVID. All right, so let's go back to the individual charts while my voice is still functioning. Excuse me. And I will be able to edit these quite a bit better when I get my software. So I'm going to stop the share and start up again. And I'm going to close this window. So for Aries, and I'm going to look at the fresh chart next week. I won't look at it this week. I think we're going to see Macron Le Pen #1 and #2, but it'll be shocking if somebody wins outright, but not expected on April 10th. All right, so we have a Mercury Rahu line in Aries, K2 in the 7th. So this will make these individuals more interested in promoting themselves, fulfilling their desires, getting rid of enemies, not so interested in relationships, changing their minds about what they want in terms of home life. But work life will still be strong for the sign really until the end of the year. And Jupiter, but some good financial gain for them, especially in terms of real estate, and also some romantic gain for them. For a Taurus, this is, again, Vedic Taurus, that's May 15th to June 15th. The Bernardo Lagna, which is connected with fame or recognition, is placed in the first house. So this sign will be obsessed with fame, and they'll get some, pretty rapidly. The moon is in the second house, so again, some career recognition. And third house is aspected by Saturn, so a lot of determination, a lot of hard work. And K2's in the sixth house, so they'll have to watch out for minor diseases or minor illnesses. And finally, we get over here, career life is fantastic. A lot of opportunities, but again, they have to work hard behind the scenes. For Gemini has moon in the first house, so this brings money into Gemini this month, at least a little bit. And Jupiter, Venus, and Mars are in the ninth house. Mercury's in the 11th house. So the money will be flowing into the sign, but not to the degree that it expects. But this sign will have a lot of prominence, a lot of public recognition this month. And also Saturn in the eighth, relationship life will still be a little bit troubling, a little bit difficult. And relationship partner will not be doing well career-wise. Really, that'll improve towards the end of April, and then it will go back down again in June, unfortunately. So career partners will have some difficulty advancing their careers, or relationship partners will have some difficulty advancing their careers. For Cancer, Cancer is in the Lord of Cancer is the moon. It's in the 12th house in this chart. And whenever that happens, this sign tends to put other people first. And Saturn, long-term relationships or troublesome relationship partners seem happy and seem a little bit aggressive, but their ambition will be strong. The relationship partner's ambition will be strong. A lot of detachment, a lot of trips away from home with this combination. And the sun sits in the ninth house, so career life and monetary life will actually improve. For Leo, the Lord of Leo is the sun, sits in the eighth house, so this sign will feel a little bit boxed in or blocked in for about another 5 days or so, and then it'll feel like it's ready to conquer the world. Jupiter, Venus, and Mars are in the seventh house, so again, good opportunity for relationships, good opportunity for new romantic involvements coming into the person's life. And also from this chart, Saturn's in the sixth, so they'll have to slow down. They'll have some periods in which they'll just have to take it easy and just work really, really hard. But their confidence is a little bit shaken, but there is a lot of optimism in this chart, although some fighting with relationship partners, unfortunately. For Virgo, Virgo has a sun in the seventh house, so there's a lot of focus on giving up things or giving charitably with this combination. Essentially self-sacrifice. And the Lord of the second house is in the sixth, so money gain is indicated, but only with some effort or with some competition. Saturn, which is an auspicious planet for this sign, is in the fifth house, so this sign will benefit from a lot of hard work it's done before. Rahu's in the eighth house. Again, some dissatisfaction or some scandals connected with a relationship partner. Moon is in the 10th house, can give some change in job assignments or some change in job duties. Maybe sometimes even loss of jobs. For Virgo, Libra's Lord is Venus, is placed in the fifth house, so it'll give a lot of benefits to the sign in terms of property and also in terms of fulfilling desires. Saturn's in the fourth, so still some problems in home life that won't go away anytime soon. And but a lot of detachment in the sign, which is a good thing. Dissatisfaction with relationship life, attraction towards younger partners. And sun's in the sixth house, so work life will be strong, but you'll have to make sure that you have good competitiveness for this sign, for a good or a high level of competitiveness for the sign to succeed. Scorpio has the Lord of the first house in the fourth. Is going to have relationship problems because that's Mars affliction in the chart. Saturn is in the fifth house, aspects the sun, which is in Saturn is in the third house, aspects the sun, which is in the fifth house. So some problems with children, some additional responsibilities connected with duties. really having to make up a lot of work. Jupiter, Venus, and Mars are in the fourth house, so some good things are happening in home life. So that's not a bad combination. The Lord of the seventh is in the fourth, so relationship partnerships are strong, but there will be more fighting than normal. And let's see now, Rahu's in the sixth, so there'll have to be some care or limitations placed on this individual because of disease or health factors. For Sagittarius, Sagittarius has Sagittarius Lord is Jupiter, and it's in the third house. Gives a lot of ambition to the sign, a lot of creativity. Saturn's in the second, although money is tight. Sun is in the fourth. It's not a bad combination. The Lord of the ninth and the fourth aspect by Saturn. Luck is good, but it will come with a lot of effort. And finally, Rahu's in the fifth house with some problems or dissatisfaction with relationship partners or romantic partners and children, and possible change of romantic partners from the moon being in the seventh house. For Capricorn, Saturn sits in the first house, Jupiter, Venus, and Mars are in the second house, so good for money, good for financial expansion. Sun is in the third house, the sign is finally confident about itself. Rahu's in the fourth. Some dissatisfaction with home life, some dissatisfaction with career or a feeling of not being recognized in career. And the moon is in the sixth house. So again, minor issues with health, mostly flu-like symptoms, not COVID. And that's it for and K2's in the ninth house, so overly critical or difficult supervisors or superiors. For Aquarius, Jupiter, Mars, and Venus are in the first house. That's a good combination. It combines some of the best houses like career houses and I'm checking this on career houses and wealth houses for this sign. So that's good. I mean, the confidence of this sign is still going to be low because of the Lord of the first house being in the 12th, but still, and there's a lot of strong desire for travel on the part of this house of this sign. But overall, this is a good combination. Lord of the seventh house is in the second house, good for meeting new people, good for expanding your circle of friendships, and also potential relationship partners. A little dangerous for married Aquarians, but not if they know how to control themselves. And moon is in the fifth house, so this can give indications of new creative activities or love affairs, or if you're not involved, or new interests. So this is actually a good chart for Aquarius. K2's in the ninth. I'm sorry. So for Capricorn, it's just a K2's in the 10th, and that gives some lack of recognition at work. For Aquarius, overly critical bosses. For Pisces, finally, last but not least, Rahu's in the second house, so some dissatisfaction with life. The sixth Lord is in the first house, so the sign is going to be looking to improve itself and challenge itself. You have 3 planets in the 12th house. This isn't necessarily bad. The ascendant Lord in the 12th does tend to make a person rather self-sacrificing, and Venus rules the 8th house and the 3rd house, neither good houses, so that's actually a good placement for that particular planet. And Jupiter, Lord of the first house, and the 10th house is in the 12th house, so career will be behind the scenes or not readily available. Mercury, Rahu, this sign will complain a lot this month. It'll feel very unhappy with itself. Moon is in Pisces. Moon in Pisces with the Lord of that house in the 12th house. Possible change of home, possible relocation. Saturn is in the 11th house for good gain if the person works hard. And K2's in the 8th house, so unexpected problems or arguments with relationship partners. So that's all I have for this week. I have to sign off. I ran a little bit over. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a great week. I love you all. Namaste.